I was raised not political, not conscious. However, that's something that's lacking inside me that I'm still learning. These are some of the things that's missing in my life, whereas I have to learn from so many other people about my biological father. And sometimes it's sad that I have to learn this way, but I'm learning.
I heard a gentleman inside the auditorium on the stage talking about power to the people, and we need our own black drug programs, and we need to get rid of methadone, and we need to have a culturally sensitive approach to black folk.
So these healers, and this is what Mutula comes from. This is in his blood, his whole cycle. He answered the calling.
Acupuncture detox specialists that have been certified by Lincoln Hospital around the world.
And finding out what this acupuncture was able to achieve, I said I had to go to the school. I was just so very, very impressed.
We talking Australia, we talking Hawaii, we talking Canada, because of Dr. Mutula Shakur, who I say is the father of acupuncture.
But from day one, as soon as he came into the prison institution, he started working with us brothers, and he molded us and had us doing curriculums.
When I met him in '72, the agenda was about bringing about change in the community, feeding people, educating people, clothing people.
Educational things, and he was, matter of fact, he was instrumental in my development. Right now, I wouldn't be at the pivotal point in my career if it had not been for Mutula.
What better gift could you do you bring to your people but to heal?
It actually started me writing. Since then, I've probably sold 1 million books.
Your father was treating your grandmother, his
Already?
mother.
Yeah,
so I actually was there witnessing him treating her for her blindness.
Mutula, all of these years, over 34 years, being in captivity for a crime that he didn't commit. I mean, that was a mock trial. It was a kangaroo court.
But one of the things I found that was so profound about him is how he could take the youth and how he could take all us young brothers and take us and mobilize us and show us academics and teach us, who we are, the essence of us.
These trumped up charges that were brought against Dr. Shakur, that he stole and killed, that's so out of character. Healers heal, they don't kill.
We always say the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
These are the voices of New Afrika. These are the voices of New Afrika. These are the voices of New Afrika. Free in the land, and we ain't asking y'all. And welcome to another episode of the Voices of New Afrika, that show where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. I'm your host, Brother Prophecy, aka J-Ra Almighty, but I ain't by myself. I'm not by myself. I got my comrades with me. I got comrade Kanye. Been off for a minute. How you doing, brother?
Free the land, free the land. Glad to be back. Glad to be back. Free the land. It's an honor and a pleasure.
And of course, we got a grandmaster teacher, the one and only brother for Dolly, having a problem with his mic. Can I unmute? Hey, you gotta unmute his mic. I can't unmute his mic. Yeah, there you go. Grandmaster teacher, how you doing?
Capitalist colonialist system in which we exist today.
How you doing?
Great as you can.
Under the capitalist
colonialist system.
colonial system. So I always ask you, about how you introduce yourself, because you have a unique way of introducing yourself every week. Say under these capitalist colonial. What do you mean by that? Why?
I mean that we are not free. That we can do the best we can while we're struggling to become free. While we're struggling to organize ourselves as people. I'm in the process of being a part of a great liberation movement, which will eventually be successful. Even after we have our problems being self-solved at over a slow pace, but we're going to be sure a free people one day. And the Republic of New Afrika is one of the organizations that are going to allow our people to have liberation as a nation. We're right now an oppressed nation, under an oppressor nation called the United States called in the world the United States of America, American empire that is waging war against all the non-white people of the world, but especially against African people and New African people in the Western Hemisphere.
Definitely. So, I mean, you said I'm gonna get something with this. But you did say, that we're not free here in America.
Right.
Now, there are a lot of people saying, well, what do you mean we're not free? I mean, we just last week, we celebrate the freedom of America with the 4th of July. And before that, we celebrated the great Juneteenth that talked where the last enslaved African learned that we are free. What you mean we're not free? 2023, comrade. What you mean we're not free yet?
Let me say this. I'm not a miseducated African. The Africans who do that are miseducated. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to educate the uneducated and the miseducated. But the miseducated are the ones that are basically the ones who are still trying to become a part of America. And we'll never be a part of America. We'll never have power in America. America said we'll only get power until we get the land, and until we get control of land. Because you can not have power if you don't have control of land. And Africans, not only here in the Western Hemisphere, but throughout the world, do not control the land or the resources of the land under which we're part. And so, consequently, we as a people have to begin to redouble our efforts to educate the uneducated and to re-educate the miseducated, so that we won't be there won't be no mistake. When we do celebrations, our celebrations are going to be for liberation. And we understand that we are not liberated at this stage of time. So therefore, we're going to plan and plot and do all the things that be necessary on some of these days that they have made allowances for people to be off work and all that. But when we off work, are not doing the things in terms of the capitalists have made us come a part of, we're doing our plot and our planning, and we're talking about organizing our people, educating our people, and educating our people.
All right. So speak on you speak to the people for a minute. I'm trying to share this out.
Yeah. Well, piggyback off of what Grandmaster Teacher Shakur was saying. Okay, now I'm hearing myself talk. Now I can't. It's good. It's just a lot, man. Sometimes I sit up here and I want to give a narrative of something in particular, and it only covers one aspect of social activity usually, and then it's so much other stuff going on. Grandmaster Teacher, you were saying that one of the important parts of the message is that land is important. Even these blonde-haired, blue-eyed devils, or whatever you want to call them, European descendants, said to their own mothers and fathers in Europe that they wanted to control their land. And they did it the way they felt inclined to do it to get the land. And they got the land. But they got the land on false pretenses. Anytime you start off on a false pretense, everything after that is false. So you taking the land that you claim from people who don't even own the land, and then you set up camp as though the people who are here is non-existent. You fighting with somebody else over my land, and you ain't said nothing to me about it. I didn't invite you over here. Once you was over here, I decided to go ahead and help you, and you tried to kill me. You tried to run me extinct. Then you start trying to claim who I am and what to call me and all this, that, and the other. The bottom line is a lot of confusion being under auspices of white people who have no idea on how to create a civilization. We are the ones that created civilization. We are the ones that can bring some sense of comfort and reality to Black people once we begin them final steps to securing our own land and creating our own independent sovereign nation. If we don't take anything away from white people, the one thing we can take away from them is that the land is the most valuable resource that we need to control in order to start that incline to freedom and liberation. If we do not have the land, we will be running around in circles, chasing our tails, like you see so many other countries that claim to be independent, that does not have control of all their resources, that don't have control of their economic system, they don't even have control of governing themselves. So with that in mind, we will go into our next phase of existence here in the United States by coming to a point of realization that these are the things that are necessary for us to move forward towards liberation. It will happen.
Yeah. And like if you stated, because last week people celebrated 4th of July. People talking about Independence Day. They were talking about, God bless America, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And, we talked about last week's show that really when you celebrate the 4th of July, you're celebrating genocide, you're celebrating rape, you're celebrating exploitation, murder, the robbing of lands, the enslavement of African people. You're celebrating all of these things. And I bring that up because last 4th of July, is this singer, a neo soul singer by the name of Jill Scott. Y'all know her. Very talented sister, extremely talented sister, but she did her version of the national anthem, and I wanted us to play that real quick. See if you can hook up those headphones so Grandmaster Teacher can hear it. But yeah, I wanted to go to the Jill Scott national version of the national anthem, which was pretty interesting to me. Just give me a second here. So I try to pull this up. But yeah, because that in America, New African people, we have an adversarial relationship with America. So when people, hang, I can't find it. But yeah, that's Grandmaster teacher. If I could give you if I could get you to kind of speak on basically the 4th of July, being patriotic, and Black people, New African people's relationship with America. While I try to find this.
Yes. Okay. So, even Frederick Douglass, who was invited to speak at a 4th of July celebration, made one of his shortest but best speeches. And why would you invite me? People that have enslaved, that have been brutalized, that have been exploited. And I can't speak on the 4th of July. That's not. We're not independent. We're not free. And so when we talk about the 4th of July and even Juneteenth, all the other celebrations that we have, that thinking that we are celebrating our freedom, which we are not free. We are not. Uhuru has not come into being. Uhuru is an African word that means freedom, and so consequently, what we have to do is use those days to not celebrate their freedom, but to talk about how we're going to free ourselves. How we're going to do African Liberation Day and all those things that will be necessary. Although Africa still has not been liberated. Kwame Nkrumah said when they got the so-called independence of Ghana, that Ghana was not independent unless the whole of Africa is independent. And we found that independence was a fallacy, because the colonialists created neo-colonial. In other words, they kept all the resources, kept all the things. So the only thing we got was a name of a state, that some of us were renamed, because Ghana was Gold Coast and it became Ghana, which is the African name, goes back to the ancient African empire in which we was in control of our history at that particular point in time. And so when we talk about these days, we should not celebrate, at any of those days, like Thanksgiving. I fast on Thanksgiving. I do not eat on Thanksgiving, because the Thanksgiving was a thanks taken. It took from the so-called the native people of this land, and they were fed and all that, and once they got fed, they attempted to exterminate the native people. We cannot. That's a sad day. Columbus Day. We don't. Columbus was the biggest liar and the biggest thief in history. So on all these holidays, and especially the so-called 4th of July, because they consolidated the system of slavery, of chattel slavery, shortly before they made their independence. I think it was in 1660 something, when they determined and made us permanent slaves in America. And we remained permanent slaves for about 250 more years before the so-called end of slavery by the 13th Amendment. And the 13th Amendment was a fake freedom document because it made allowances for us to be enslaved in prisons. And we were enslaved in prison and enslaved on the same farm that was a slave farm, because they wouldn't let us leave, and because the economy of the South was based on the labor, the free labor and cheap labor of African people. That's why the New Africans are saying we must have our own nation. We must have self-determination. And so consequently, that is where we are today.
Yeah, and I have the Jill Scott clip loaded, so we're gonna go to that, and then we'll react to it. But this is Jill Scott National Anthem on the 4th of July, I guess in a concert or whatever.
Oh, say, can you see by the blood in the You'll die in this place, and your memory reigns. Oh, say, does this truth hold any weight? This is not the land of the free, but the home of the slave.
And that was Jill Scott doing her version of the national anthem. Actually did that on the 4th of July. Any reactions to what y'all heard right there? I personally thought that was kind of powerful, being that she is a mainstream artist and a very successful one, a very talented one. And she used her stage and her platform to actually condemn the racist white power structure of the United States of America, and basically taking their national anthem and just flipping it on them and trying to sing it from the perspective of exploited and brutalized African people here in America. So what are your thoughts on like her performance or what she said, or sentiment, or was she on point, or any criticism about it? Because she got a lot of backlash for that particular performance. And I'm gonna open it up for anybody who want to just jump in and add to the conversation. Either one of y'all can speak.
Well, first and foremost, Jill Scott is just the truth in an artistic way. Put things in perspective. She's going to be dealt with by the masters, the oppressor, the masters that they call themselves, by any means necessary. But the truth has to be said. The truth has to be put there. And we need to have more people taking a stance on what they believe in when it comes to Black liberation and the things that have happened to us in the past, so that information will never die. Obviously, she's in the industry, the entertainment industry, so obviously it takes a lot of courage for her to stand up and do that. It doesn't do anything for me as far as getting me more information that I didn't know. It pretty much, that's why I say it's the truth that what she said, because I know that to be the truth. They built this, the land. This land had our bloods in the street, and we watched ourselves build this country with our blood, sweat, and tears. She said the sweat in our hands. This country has never smiled on our children. She mentioned that in one of the lyrics, how this land didn't smile for our children. And that stuff still goes on to this day, even in terms of us having to go through our struggle, asking for things for them to do for us, quote unquote, to only find out that they including everybody, as if our plight was nothing unique or special. So every time we ask for something, there's a whole slew of other people that they feel should be added to the gains that we've fought to obtain in this oppressive society. But at the same time, those of us who know is no answer in this. They've had 400 plus years to get it right, and they ain't got it right, and don't think they're gonna get it right in the next 10 self. And we know what that means. I mean, and I pass on that.
Let me say this. I think that it's giving people who don't have knowledge or information some things that to look at, because and one thing that we when we talked about the so-called national anthem of the United States, which was one of the worst national anthems of all national anthems in the world. And at the fourth, and I think the fourth part of it, what they call that, fourth verse, what they call that, the different little stanzas of it, you know, where they glorify slavery, because Francis Scott Key was the writer of that and was a slave master himself. And basically, they in the fourth verse, what they call that verse, not the fourth.
Yeah, he was like the fifth voice.
Fifth verse, right. But fourth
Third paragraph.
Yeah, so the paragraph, yeah, and so when it celebrated them being able to keep slavery intact, in spite of the British, you know, like running over and burning down the White House and all the things that, you know, in the war so-called 1812, you know, and the British took over Washington D.C. and Madison, his wife, had to flee out of the White House, and they burned down the White House, you know, and so that's what Francis Scott Key was talking about, you know, bombs bursting in the air and all that kind of stuff, and that they've survived, and the system of slavery is still intact in spite of the so-called war against the British. When the British came back and almost took over the United States, you know. So these are the kind of things we have to begin to look at, because we had some of our singers like Marvin Gaye that popularized, you know, by the way he sang it, you know, popularized it, you know, in the minds of a lot of people. And a lot of singers have like Jill Scott, not like Jill Scott, have tried to make it sound better and all that. But it's one of the most terrible national anthems. It doesn't celebrate nothing other than the white supremacy being held together as a result of winning the so-called war of 1812 and 1815. You know, when they eventually did, you know, prevail. And these are the kind of things where we have to begin to get our people to understand that why we should we should turn our television off when they play the so-called national anthem, you know, because it is not our national anthem. And even one that we call our national anthem, you know, it let us know that we must, you know, that we must still resist for freedom, and that, you know, so these are the kind of things that we have to begin to get our singers and entertainers to understand. It was good that she did what she did, that is to get the information, because it gives the information that we're still not free as a people, regardless of all the little civil rights bills and all the other things, what you were talking about, Brother Kakaye, to the point of where, you know, where we got to recognize. You see, when they give you something, they're not giving you, they can take it back. And whatever they gave you, and it's going to be the minimal of whatever, if they give you anything. So I think it's very important, and I'm glad that she did do what she did. That's like a protest, and we still can protest, but we understand it's not going to change anything or any condition. just by protest.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that that uh that individuals who make a stand like that or a protest like that is it sparks conversation. It allows us to control the narrative and not just allow their voice to be heard. You know, and so that's is very important, and that's one of the things that's why art and entertainment is so important, because you know your entertainers kind of inculcate the people, the masses, with cultural identity, cultural norms of how you should act, how you should behave. You are indoctrinated through your music, through your entertainment. You're not even trying to. You are educated through entertainment, and you're not even trying to be educated. You know, you learn. If you always hear people talking about bitch this, nigga this, even though you might say, "Oh, I just like the beat. I just like the beat." That listening to that a lot, it comes a part of you. You start to accept that. That starts to be normalized. That you know, so it's good to hear these type of things in order to know, you know, something you said about the national anthem and the War of 1812 and the reference of the slave. You know, in these later verses of the national anthem, you know, specifically it says, "No refuge could save the hireling enslaved from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave." That's in the national anthem. They don't sing that particular verse, but you know, basically that's a threat to not only enslaved African but poor whites too. Because one thing that was happening in that War 1812 was the British. They said that we'll give you your freedom if you come fight for us on the side of the on our side of this war. And many enslaved Africans joined them, including indentured servants, our poor whites. They did that, and this is reference to saying, "Hey, man, how dare y'all join these British people to try to fight against us because you want our freedom?" And you know, it just basically says, "No refuge could save the hireling enslaved from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave." In other words, he's saying, yo, for doing that, for trying to gain your freedom, we are going to murder you. We're going to annihilate you. We're going to destroy you. That's in the national anthem. So within that national anthem itself, it talks about the condition or the status of the enslaved African within itself. But I want to kind of switch directions just a little bit here, because I don't want to say it's a sad day, but you know, a lot of people are kind of sad from the passing of a great freedom fighter. We like to say it's an opportunity to celebrate the life of an individual that had a great example of a true liberator, of a true freedom fighter. As most of you know, Dr. Mutula Shakur has transitioned. He has moved on. And this is a brother who was a member of the Black Liberation Army. He was a political prisoner. He was a doctor. He helped to plan the escape, the liberation of our great Queen Mother Assata Shakur. He was a great example of a freedom fighter, of the liberation and New African independence movement. Grandmaster Teacher, I know you have a lot to say about this great brother Mutula Shakur, so I'm gonna open it up to you.
Yes, Mutula Shakur, like, was a planner. He was, you know, he facilitated the escape of Assata Shakur. Him and his comrades freed her from the white prison, and she was able to go to Cuba. He was one of the planners of what they call the Brinks, you know, it's known as the so-called Brinks robbery, $3 million, liberated for the struggle. In other words, money that would be because we know that the capitalist system is a system that robs us anyway as a people, and he was able to facilitate that, and that's basically what they hunted him down, and put him in prison. And he was also the godfather of Tupac Shakur, and he was a comrade of Tupac's mother, Afena Shakur. Afena Shakur, who was a Black Panther leader who helped the New York 21 when the New York police and Fed went and put false charges on 21 members of the Black Panther, to break the Black Panther Party in New York. And Afena Shakur was able to be free enough to be able to get a lawyer, and they eventually dropped those whatever false charges that they had for the New York 21. And that's where you had the Shakur group, Asada Shakur got in a gun battle with some New Jersey state troopers, and that's why she was then in prison. They put her in a men's prison, and Brother Mutula was able to get her to liberate her from there. In other words, they broke out of prison and took her to Cuba, and that was a bold move. This was in 1973. When between 1973 and 1979, you had these activities. 1979 was when they broke her out. She was in prison in 1973, and she was the leader of the Black Liberation Army, and so we got many people who have been imprisoned, because they were part of the Black Liberation Army, and the Black Liberation Army basically put their target on the police that were killing African people in the 1970s and 1980s, and for a while, police had to look over their shoulder, if they made any kind of move to kill Africans when they stop them, stop them in the streets, something like that. So this is something we're doing. We're celebrating the life of Mutula Shakur, and we want to pay homage to the others who are still in prison right now, and that we got to figure out a way to liberate them the best by any means necessary. Like Mutula Shakur, that's an example of what must happen ultimately when we as revolutionaries began to be captured by the enemy and all that. And he was put in an isolated prison in New Mexico, along with Larry Hoover, along with H. Rep. Brown, and some others who are in these isolated places. When you put in isolation like that, they can do anything they want to. That means to the point where you only have 1 hour outside of your cell, but the other 23 hours is behind a cell for you to be treated in any kind of way, and make sure that you're broken by any kind of sickness or illness or any kind of way. By the time they get ready to liberate you, that you're going to be able to be of the same service that you did before you were put into those places. And these are the kind of things that we have to begin to honor these heroes and take their example as an example. And he was a doctor, and he was able to heal a lot of. He was a healer, and he must be known as a healer with acupuncture. Used acupuncture, and the acupuncture organization that he put together is still in existence now. And these are the kind of things that, in other words, he inspired and he helped to organize our people. And some of the institutions, one institution that's still left that he organized, still is existing today and committed to freeing our people.
Definitely, no doubt. It's Mutula Shakur. I want to go to our social media real quick. Confidence. Shakur. Let me mute this real quick. Confidence. Chizoro Okeke. He said, resurrection is promised to elder brother Mutula Shakur. Definitely. Amun Ra. You checking in from our YouTube station. How you doing? Free the Land. Mutula Shakur is a new African martyr. Definitely. We are celebrating the life of one of our great freedom fighters, Mutula Shakur. And one thing you have to understand, as Grandmaster Teacher alluded to, that he orchestrated the escape, the liberation of Assata Shakur. Of course, he was in prison for activity and being in his political activity. One thing we have to understand, during the time in which all of these things were happening, there was an open war against African people in America. It was an all-out open war. The FBI, the United States government, had declared war on our people. It was open season on the Black Panther Party. It was open season on. In fact, that's why the Black Liberation Army was developed, because they felt that they had to have more aggressive tactics to fight against this war. It was like unfair trying to just have a political party, and you are being fired upon. They are trying to assassinate your leaders. They are assassinating your leaders. They murdered Fred Hampton Sr. in his bed while he slept, cold-blooded in his bed while he slept. Also, Deputy Mark Clark. So this was a time period in which all-out war was being applied to our people. Now, they don't talk about that in our school system, but the Black Panther Party, as well as many other liberation movement organizations, were attacked by a illegal program, the counterintelligence program. Now that's a documented part of the history. The counterintelligence program, an illegal program, was used to attack the Black Panther Party's members of the liberation movement during that time period, in an all-out war to get rid of a real threat to this brutal, oppressive system in America. And that's what it was all about. It was about eliminating a threat to a system that is based on the exploitation of our people. And they went to war against our people. And so we have to understand the context in which all of these things were happening, the context of the liberation of Assata Shakur. Because right now, you look at the FBI, she's the most wanted woman in America. She has like $1 million bounty on her head, still to this day, because she is an example of a victory that we won. And we didn't, ultimately we lost this war that they waged on us, although the war is still continuing. But we suffered, great defeats at the hands of the United States government. And we can talk about that on and on. They have examples of Mutula Shakur being in prison for as long as he did is an example of that. They released him after his health had deteriorated so much that he was no longer a threat to the system. And as you see, shortly after he was released, he succumbed to his illness. But it's important that we understand the context of the Black Panther Party, the context of the Black Liberation Movement, and so many things that were happening during that time period. It was a time in which it was an all-out assault on our people who were fighting against a system of oppression and brutality. And that cannot be stated too much. We have to understand, and we have to understand also that this war is not over. War is not over. We suffered a harsh defeat, and for the past decade or so, we have been trying to rebuild, and we have been trying to regroup. And you see, what you're seeing now is the emergence of and the efforts of us to put the pieces back together. And when you talk to a lot of the elders, you see a lot of people who are really shell-shocked. Yeah, there are a lot of members of our organization who are shell-shocked from what has happened to them. Not all, but you have some, and that's a history that has to be told. And there are many victories in which we have gained that we don't talk about. Assata Shakur won. We have other members who have liberated themselves, stole helicopters and flown to Cuba. We've had shootouts with police in which they faced casualties, but we did not. The RNA 11, that was, I interviewed, I can't think of the elder's name, but he was a member of the RNA 11. And he told about how they came in shooting, trying to attack them and trying to assassinate our leadership, our Amari, just as they did Fred Hampton. But we were ready because we learned the lessons of Fred Hampton, and we were prepared, and we attacked back. We fought back, and we did not suffer not one single casualty, but they did. The brother was talking about how when they were being arrested, the the Gestapo fascist police were celebrating. They broke out some beer and they were toasting and said, "Yeah, we got him." And they said the sergeant pulled up and he smacked the beer out of the hand and said, "What the fuck are you doing?" This is his word. So, "What are you doing?" So we lost many of our good men today. This ain't a cause to celebrate. Y'all just got y'all ass whooped. And the brother who I was interviewing, and you can go to my YouTube page and you can see the interview. I'll probably post it later on. But our great elder, he said he remember just putting his head down, just laughing at that, because he got a great chuckle at the fact that they had just whooped the police. But he said the only reason that they had to surrender was they ran out of ammunition. They just ran out of ammunition. But it's a big history that we don't know about, and Mutula Shakur is a part of that history, a great part of that history. You know, during Black History Month, you talk about Martin Luther King, Jay-Z, and Barack Obama. Maybe you throw Oprah in there, and maybe Harry Tubman, but you don't talk about so many freedom fighters that sacrificed so much for the liberation of our people. In this continued struggle for the liberation of our people. And I'll yield on that.
One of the things that we are doing with, like I said, we're celebrating Mutula Shakur and his lifetime of struggle and organizing our people. And even when he was in prison, he was making influences, to people, and to the point of where, we must begin to understand and know these people, these heroes and sheroes who became must be our example for the future, not for the present and for the future. And I think that when we talk about this, we got to understand that the prisons are not a place where they're going to treat us as the enemy. That's why we got to understand who the enemy is. The United States government is the main enemy of the liberation struggle of African people throughout the world, and especially African people in the United States. And so we as we were talking earlier, about these so-called national anthems and all these things. What we have to do is begin to deal with our own freedom, our own struggle, to the point of becoming educated to who we are as a people and who we are going to be in terms of the future, in terms of freeing ourselves from this system and understanding what self-determination is and what self-governance is and all the things that, so we must move to control all the institutions and all the things in the community in which we live, so that so we can liberate not only African people, but we can also have alliances with all the other people who are oppressed by this oppressor nation and by the other oppressor nations such as Britain and France and Portugal and Spain and Belgium and Holland. Those people took over the world, and it's only after World War II, when the United States emerged as an American empire and to take over to fight the wars and stuff for the so-called British Empire and the French Empire in Vietnam and places like that. And we're still looking at ourselves being called in to defend this country, and so that's why we're saying we're educating the uneducated, and also we're going to re-educate the miseducated. so that we won't have these forces, being aligned against us, when we really have ourselves organized to the point where we can contend with this capitalist system to the point of building up a socialist world. And this is where we are today when we talk about Mutula Shakur. And when we begin to look at that and look at what this man, how he, became a part of, he was part of organization. When we talk about these individuals, we're not talking about them just as individuals. They were a part of a movement. They were a part of organization. They did planning. They, to contend with us, to pull us out of this system in which we are being oppressed and exploited even today. And this is what our task must be. Our task must be to emulate, the things that they did during that period of time.
Definitely. I want to say everybody out there that's tuning in, thank y'all for tuning in. Send us a like, man. Hit that like button, help us out. Drop a comment so we can converse and go back and forth. Let us know who out there. And if you know of anybody who might enjoy or benefit from this type of conversation, just hit them up or drop their name in the comment section so they can get a notification that we're on and we can grow this conversation. But we're celebrating the life of our great freedom fighter, now ancestor Mutula Shakur. He was just recently transitioned, and you talked a lot about how the prison system is not, it is really a mechanism of torture, and they make it as uncomfortable as possible. And many of our freedom fighters who were in prison who have been in prison for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, find themselves in situations where their health is fading. That's was the situation of Mutula Shakur himself. He was suffering from cancer, and that's the only reason why they really let him out, because his health had reached a stage where he was no longer a real threat to this power structure. But the prison has a long history of this resistance movement, because many of our soldiers were in prison. That we transformed the prison system into our training academies. And in many prisons today, a lot of our brothers and sisters only get properly educated by going to prison. And that's an unfortunate reality. But when we visit the prison, in fact, we're supposed to come and visit the prison not too far. I think at the end of June, we're supposed to come back to the prison system to have a program with the brothers inside the camps. But just talking to the prisoners, our inmates, we find that a lot of them really were introduced to any type of political education, any type of cultural education, any type of real history about themselves. They were introduced in the prison system. They didn't learn in the school system. And, you think about it, that makes sense, because the school systems, our public school systems, are created and ran by the individuals who benefit from our exploitation. They are ran and created by our historic enemy. So our enemy is not going to teach us anything that is going to give us true liberation. They're just not going to do it. And we see in many states that the little history that we have been able to put into the public school system, that's going away. And they're making it illegal. They're creating laws that make it illegal for us to teach our history. Just think about that. Imagine that. What's so powerful about our history that a group of people feel it necessary to create laws outlawing us to teach it?
So why did they, in chattel slavery, prevent slaves from reading, from writing, from doing the things that would be necessary? Because when we educate ourselves to our own history, we are going to be a powerful people our leadership is going to be a powerful leadership, which is going to lead us to coming out of the condition under which we have been, held. And so in the prisons, I've been in prison, and in the prisons we have brothers and sisters who are studying as much as they can. They're at groups to liberate our people, to liberate themselves to the point of where when they get out, they'll be able to be advanced forces to become part of the leadership structure. And so that's why in the first efforts of trying to prevent us from having the education it was in the prison themselves. The prisons had stopped allowing prisoners to get books and to the revolutionary books information, but they prevailed. I'm talking about the prison, and that's why the brother from Attica is always instructive, in terms of reminding us of Attica and what happened, and why they had to allow the prisoners to be able to have that concession, to be able to come together. And so in the prison I was in, which was a federal prison in Millington, which is a minimal security prison, I was inspired by the different groups and stuff that was in the different dormitories. So when I say I'm hopeful in terms of our liberating ourselves eventually, I with my own experiences, I could see how our people are starving for true education and all that. And in spite of the efforts that are being made by the U.S. government and the different governors of state Florida and different places like that, we are going to prevail. We're going to, because we're going to take our children out of these places ultimately, and we'll be setting up our own groups of people to educate and re-educate, so that we'll be able to do those things as necessary. What they're doing is actually playing into our hand, really, because the enemy will never educate, us. The slave master will never educate the slave. The slavery system will never do anything for the good of the slave. So we have to look at that, with a more broader idea in terms, so that we won't be just protest. We'll understand that our next step is to step out of this system, step out of these systems that are not teaching us anything anyway, and will never teach it right if they did put it in there, And that's why they're adding all the other things, all those other group, instead of trying to do Black history or African history. They want to do universal history. And universal history, like that means you got to have everybody together in a multicultural. Multicultural is a joke. Is to deter us from being able to get to our own efforts to educate ourselves.
We have to look at everything that this white power structure gives us. We have to look at it with deep suspicion, because, like you said, they don't teach us our history in school, and if they did teach us, we got to be, suspicious, because they're not going to teach us in a correct way, because the oppressor is not going to teach the oppressed how to overthrow the oppression. That's not going to happen, and they're just not going to teach us correctly. If they do teach us any history, they'll do like they're doing now. They'll teach you about Martin Luther King, and that's about it. They're going to teach you in a way that's going to allow them to maintain their system. They're not going to teach you about the ways in which this system has exploited and brutalized us, and it still does. If they teach us about slavery, they'll teach it as something that happened in the past. We didn't know any better, and now we've learned our lesson, and everything is good. But they won't teach us that it was about the exploitation of the labor, and that is still going on. That exploitation still goes on today. The problem of slavery has not been solved. It has not been resolved. It has just been evolved into another form. It just looks different. It's more acceptable now. It's easier on the eyes. It's kind of like, when they moved away from the electric chair. They say, well, the electric chair, that's inhumane. We're going to give you lethal injection. That's in order to kill a person on death row. Give you the lethal injection because it's more humane. Not really, because when you understand what's happening to you, this injection is basically killing you from the inside. It liquefies your insides. It's a terrible death. It's terrible, but it doesn't look as bad as execution. You don't smell burning flesh when you inject somebody, but it is an extremely painful, extremely horrible death. But it just looks better. This system of capitalism, it looks better than chattel slavery. It looks, you can fool yourself and believe, hey, everybody has an opportunity. Everybody is free. If you don't make it, it's your fault because you're lazy, without analyzing the particulars of this system that gives differential advantages to certain groups of people when it exploits other people, and you have a small minority of people who gain riches and riches and riches at the exploitation and expense of everybody else. We're not taught that. We're taught this distorted form of history where the predator looks like the liberator. And that's how it always is. If the hunter is going to tell the story, then the prey is always going to be victim. It's going to be looked at as the enemy. It's going to be looked at as the bad guy. So we have to be in position to support things like the Amin system. Big ups to Baba Amin. Not that, the Uhuru Academy. Big ups to Baba Amin for doing y'all thing. And if hey, that's an online school right there. You're getting tired of the miseducation that your children are receiving, take them out. Take them out. You can enroll them in the Uhuru Academy. You can do that now. Do it. And they have a great and excellent program. Cosign 1000%. Go to the social media real quick. Brother Amun Ra said the liberation of Assata Shakur was a victory for the New African Independence Movement. Now, and I agree with you on that, comrade. There definitely is a victory for us, and we need to be in position to tell our own stories. There needs to be a real movie about Assata Shakur told from our perspective, not from the perspective of the government. Because, like I said, Assata Shakur, she's one of the most wanted women in America. She's on the FBI top 10 America's most wanted list. They have like a bounty of $1 million on her head, and we're saying all hands off Assata. Hands off Assata. It'd be wonderful if we reach the point where we can bring her home, because she has not been home in how many years is that since she was liberated and she went to Cuba, got asylum in Cuba. What year was that? 79. 1979. It's 2023. That's what? That's almost 50 years. Almost 50 years since this queen has not been allowed to come home. So
America not our home.
Well, you're right. You're right. America is not our home. So yeah, and that's an interesting dilemma that African people find ourselves in, because we've been so detached from our motherland, our mother country, that it's hard. A lot of us, a lot of things that are indigenous to our homeland that it don't resonate with us because we've been so detached from it, and we've been over here for so many centuries. But at the same time, this was never our home. So it's like we have to fight and we have to struggle to create something that is really a home. And that's what we're trying to do here at the New African Independence Movement. We're trying to create a home for our people, a real home. where we won't have to look at the song and the theme songs and rewrite the words so it reflects our struggle. Because it's like Jill Scott said, this ain't the home of the free. It's the land of the slave. Big ups to Melly Queen. I see you out there. Good to see you back, man. I did not get an opportunity to catch your show last night, but I heard you came back on the air last night, like at least you were supposed to. How did that go? Because I didn't have a chance to catch it. I wasn't, I wasn't around in a position where I could check it out when it came on. So, but good to see you back on the scene. No doubt. It said, free the land, comrades. How's everybody doing today? And we're doing wonderful, Queen. And we're doing a lot better than you have checked in. And you also said, rest in power to Dr. Mutula Shakur. I'm so angry. And, and I understand the anger because he was incarcerated for so many decades. And when he got out, he was only released because he was extremely sick, and he was only out for a few months, and then he succumbed to his illness. But I think it's more valuable if we look back on our great freedom fighter, and we celebrate his life and reflect upon the many great lessons that we learned from this great freedom fighter, which was a master strategist. He was a great freedom fighter, and he was a great healer, not just an individual who healed people, but he created institutions that still stand today that heal people. And that's what we have to be about. That's a really example of nation building, creating institutions, because we're trying to struggle for the land, independence, and self-determination. But when we gain land, we still got to have our institutions. So we need to be doing that now. So once we liberate the land, once we free the land, we, as Grandmaster teachers say, we can hit the field running. We won't be. We got land now. We got to figure out what to do about it. Oh, and Mon-Ra says, the bounty on Assad Shakur was raised to $2 million in 2013 during the neo-colonial puppet administration of President Barack Obama. So thank you for that correction. So yeah, it's $2 million bounty on Assad Shakur, and raised during the Obama administration. Ain't that something? People celebrated and said, yeah, we got us a black president. We are equal and everything's all great. That's how the narrative was given to us. But doing that, his administration, the war was intensified against our people. I mean, not only did he raise the bounty on Assad Shakur, but African and the African, basically you had a reemergence of the Berlin Conference, just about, with the attacks on Africa under his administration. But so yeah, so
assassinations too.
Yeah, assassinations. Well, didn't Gaddafi get assassinated during his administration? Yeah, Gaddafi, and that's another individual that we need to study. We need to study the things that Gaddafi was doing and what he was trying to do. He was actually trying to put in place some real things that would benefit our people, especially on the continent. But it would break the stranglehold and the control in which the United States had in this capitalistic system that is exploiting our country, our continents for so many centuries, really. And Gaddafi was doing something about that, and they got rid of him. So just because America says somebody is their enemies, just because America says that we shouldn't like somebody or somebody's evil, that doesn't mean we should listen to them. Because, like I said, if you listen to their constitution, not even their constitution, but their national anthem, it directly addresses our ancestors, and it does not address our ancestors in a positive way. As I quote, no hireling or slave. Oh man, I can't remember the quote, but anyway, you remember what I said, But I'm a yield right there.
I've been kind of quiet
lately.
No, it's a lot going on in my head, with the Shakur death. knowing how many of our POWs have been released from jail, succumbing to cancer months after they are released, even just brothers and sisters that wasn't totally into the struggle, but did some time, came out with cancer. And each one of them that I talked to personally said that they got diagnosed with cancer, and then they start injecting them with so-called medication. There's two guys I talked to personally. One was one of the people you looked up to in the hood type of person, got locked up, got 25 years. He came out, he lived 6 months. Matter of fact, for the most part, the two people, and I'm pretty sure if we did some research, all of those guys came out of jail with the prison system saying they only have a certain amount of months to live. For the most part, some of them may not be true, but for the people that I'm talking about, it was true. They let them out, said they ain't got but about 6 months to live. They couldn't maintain them in a hospice. The family, they give them back to the family, and the family, if they can afford it, put them in a hospice. But all of these two guys said that they diagnosed them with cancer. They ain't had no symptoms or nothing, but they told them they got cancer and they're gonna have to give them treatment. And he said when they started injecting them, that's when they started feeling sick. And then no sooner than that, they were released. So I wouldn't put nothing past our enemy. They experimented with us in the public eye with the Tuskegee experiments and other experiments that are known that we have experienced as a people, and that knowing that prison is a source of slave labor. It's actually a source of slave labor when you get out, because when it's known that you've been incarcerated, you're belittled to accept any meager paying job in order to get some employment, and that's a form of slavery in and of itself, because you got to take it if you want to survive, and they only offering you a certain amount because you got a criminal record. So I mean, the whole system is messed up.
So wage slavery, capitalism is wage slavery. Our people are dying outside, not just inside, outside of prison. The highest death rate is among our people, because we've been mistreated in hospitals and different places that we go for help. So this system is unsentimental. And we have to be unsentimental and understanding that we have to take our lives in our own hands to do whatever that would be necessary for our own health, to take control of our community, of all these places that we go. You know what I'm saying? And we have to begin to understand. That's why that you don't have enough doctors, enough health care people, because we're not we're not even being allowed to be in the college, even under the so-called affirmative action. It's very few black people that are African people that are allowed to go to these institutions and then come out and graduate or whatever. And so we because of the wage slavery, so we're still the lowest paid, and we are still the first, fire, the first, all the things that go, anything that goes bad in terms of the system, any laws that are being created, they start with us, they start with us. And in terms of, in other words, and then they're, once they go to us with the laws, then the laws are being, because this is a criminal society anyway. So we're not living in a normal so-called society. We're living in a criminal society, and it's the real criminals that have benefited, from, and so that's what we have to learn, that we, when we talk about it, to let our people know that this is something that's a normal thing, and what they're doing to our political prisoners and other prisoners, it's a slavery system. It's not, it's wage slavery. It's not, we're not working in many places for, free like we used to, but it's cheap labor. And the profit is what they call that, profit for the big companies and the big, the rich and the super rich. And once we, understand that, then we understand why we are saying that we got to break her loose, with our own government, with our own, state, our own system. And we're not going to emulate that system, because we know that system is not for the oppressed and for the exploited, or for the people who have been, abused in any kind of way. And so this is a criminal society. This is a what they call that psychopathic society. In other words, they don't care nothing about people, about the people, under any circumstances, And so, but they start with us because we are the basis of the development of the American empire. And basically, and so the American empire that created consumers of African people throughout the world. In other words, the money and stuff that are being out of the gold mines and all that. There's a handful of Africans that are that have any form of wealth or any form of of influence or whatever. But it's on for the benefit of the master class, the master white supremacist class that is continuing to thrive, as a result of its exploitation of us. And so therefore, and that's why being at the bottom, one day the bottom will be the top. But when we come to the top, we're not going to be a top in that sense. We're going to have a new system in which everybody's going to emulate, the socialist system that we're going to set up in our operation.
No doubt. Gonna go to social media real quick. Get rid of this echo if I can. But yeah, Meta Queen said, thanks, Brother Ye-Ra. We had an awesome show. Join us on Fridays at 5 o'clock p.m. Central Time at 515-605-9782. And please check out our other shows, New African Perspective on Mondays at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time on Facebook Live, Foundations of the Nation on Tuesdays at 10:30 a.m. on Facebook Live, Conversations Between Comrades on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Central on Facebook Live. Join us on our Facebook page. NABA, join us, join our family, Free the Land. No doubt. Thank you for that, Melly Queen. And this Thursday on Conversations Between Comrades, we're gonna have a special guest. We're gonna have our brother Obafemi. He's gonna be on the show with his rap group, and we're gonna be talking about artists and hip hop and music and really what's the responsibility of us in the music industry and in entertainment, and how entertainment can be used as a tool to educate the people and help with this liberation movement. So make sure y'all check us out there. He also said the Obama administration was for one put pause. Hold on, wait, what did it say? Wait. Obama's administration was for one put pose only bring about these gay laws and further exploit any African that he could under the illusion of him pimp walking like he love us. That's a really good point. Because a lot of us, because Obama looked like a black person. When you hear him talk, he sound like somebody you know. He might have sound like your cool uncle, and he had this swag that just was, just undeniable. He had a lot of charisma. He's just a likable guy, and we take that as though that actually meant he was down for our people and he was actually doing something for our people, when the reality was he just looked good. I know people who was like, I know women who's like, oh, he fine, child, he look good and all, but that's fine and great, but that does not change our condition. Having an appearance does not change our collective condition. Like we said earlier, the system, it didn't change, it didn't go away. The appearance of it just changed. They just controlled the narrative. They said, oh no, it's different. But when it still operated in the same exact way. Amon Ra, he said, checkmate. Muammar Gaddafi was assassinated during Obama's administration. See, there you go. There you go. You got this guy who looked like us, who talked like us, who got this real cool, he's singing Al Green, and the brother can say he a cool dude, man. Obama's a cool guy, But under his administration, the same thing happened. The agenda of the American empire, colonialism, still reigns supreme. That did not change. And that's what we have to be focused on. That has to be focused on. Susan Rogers, how you doing, Susan? Hello, everybody. Free the land. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to you. Also, Queen, good to hear from you. Melly Queens, how is Comrade Atiba doing? That's a good question, because actually been a couple of, maybe about a week since I talked to him. I know he hit me up, but he hit me up. My phone actually just went out, so it's a lot of phone calls and that I missed. So if I didn't get in contact with somebody who was trying to get in contact with me, I wasn't trying to avoid you. My phone went out. I had dropped it and it cracked and it started turning black, and everybody was telling me, man, your phone gonna go off. You need to get a new one. But me, I'm cheap. I don't like buying new things. And finally, it went out on me. I didn't even know it was just completely gone. I wasn't getting phone call, texts, and everything. But I'm back up and running. But yeah, we've been talking about a couple of different things. We talked about the national anthems version sung by Jill Scott. You haven't got an opportunity, check that out, man. What's your thought on what she did for the national anthem? As well as we are celebrating the life of Mutula and Mutula Shakur, great freedom fighter who has transitioned. He was now an ancestor. And we are honoring him, reflecting on his life, his contributions to the liberation struggle, and ask everybody to don't simply just look at him as an individual who did some good stuff once upon a time, but look at his life as a teaching tool and something that we can build upon to continue our struggle, because it's not our struggle is something that is not in the past. Black history is not just completely black history. We learn our history so we can understand our present and we can guide our future to where we need it to be. So, with that, we've been on for almost an hour and a half. I guess we're gonna wrap it up in a little while. I want to thank everybody. Yeah, man, it's like the rain just came down. But see, Melly Queen said, glad to be back. We're glad to have you back. We've been missing your show. We're missing that energy, that fire. Melly Queen got a fire about her that is unique to her. Call it Melly Queenism or something, And we've been missing that energy, so we're so glad to have you back. And make sure y'all check out her show. But before we get out of here, y'all got any parting words that y'all want to give the people before we leave? I'm going to go to you, Kakai.
Just remember that having our own independent sovereign nation is not something new. The solution is still there. Mutula Shakur, rest in ascension. He was a martyr, a New African martyr, a conscious citizen of the Republic of New Africa, and you should be a conscious citizen of the Republic of New Africa. Check out the pgrna.com website. for all the upcoming events and elections for the Republic of New Africa by the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa after the revolution.
History is past, present, and future. But we're not going, not having a discussion of the past without talking about the present and talk about what we're going to do in the future. What we're going to do today, what we're going to do in the future. And so, therefore, when we talk, we must walk. Because if you just talk and don't walk, you're not doing anything to benefit our people. So keep listening and become part of the organization, that is working for your people. I don't care what it is. If it's working for your people, if you feel that it's going to free us, to liberate us, you can't find any that exists at this time, build you a new organization. And call me. I'll be a part of your new organization.
Lee. And I will just say, well, let me read a couple more comments that just come in. Meta Queen, laughing my freaking ass off. Thanks, comrade. Yeah, y'all have a great day. When are we going to start back watching movies on Sundays? And but that's a good point. You know what I'm saying? Let's aim for shoot for some next week. During the week, man, y'all drop inbox me or put a post on one of our pages about what movie y'all want to see, and we'll start that back up. We'll look at movies and we'll do that. So free the land to you, Melly Queen. Good to see you back again. Free the land, Confidence. Chizoro KK in Jacksonville. Umwa Bantoon number 2. Free the land to you too. And I will close out by saying rest in power to our comrade Mutula Shakur. And I know everybody is going to be sending out love. Make sure y'all send out love to him and his family. But I mean, it's good to send out a post, to drop a post, to send out words of encouragement, to share videos, to share his work. That is excellent to do. But if you really want to honor this brother, then we gotta pick up the torch and we have to carry on the work that he was doing. And that was nation building. That was the liberation of new African people. We have to be about that work. You don't have to be an acupuncturist. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a political prisoner. We all have our own individual talents, skills, intellects, abilities. But let's make sure we use that to accomplish the goal of nation building and the liberation of our people. My name is Brother Prophecy. You've been watching and listening to the Voices of New Afrika. Make sure y'all join us every week and join all of our other programs as we attempt to nation build, as we attempt to free the land, and we attempt to educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. See y'all again next week. We love y'all. What I'm gonna end with? What am I gonna end with? I don't even know what I'm gonna end with. Let's do this. We'll do it like this. Free land, free the land, free the land, family. See y'all again next week.
Oh, say, can you see by the blood in the streets that this place doesn't smile? Oh, colored child whose blood built this land with sweat on their hands. But you'll die in this place, and your memory reigns. Oh, say, does this truth hold This is not